Imagine surviving after being shot 7 times. Imagine enduring that level of violence from someone who once promised to love and protect you. Tina Davis, a Georgia woman, lived through that nightmare. In a shocking domestic violence attack, her estranged husband, Ronnie Goss, shot her multiple times, intending to end her life. But in a strange twist of fate, one of the bullets intended to kill her ricocheted and hit Ronnie, taking out his eye. In his desperation to save himself, Ronnie called 911, and in doing so, unknowingly saved Tina's life as well. Before that horrifying day, Tina Davis lived what many would consider a normal life. Born and raised in Georgia, Tina was known for her warmth, resilience, and strong work ethic. Her life, however, took a dramatic and dark turn when she met and later married Ronnie Goss. What started as a love story quickly unraveled into a nightmare, but the signs weren't clear from the beginning. Like many domestic violence survivors, Tina's relationship with Ronnie started out full of promise, with dreams of a shared future. So, how did Tina's life come to such a brutal moment? How did a relationship that began in love turn into one filled with violence and fear? And how, against all odds, did she survive? Tina's story is one of resilience, survival, and ultimately, hope in the face of unimaginable terror. As we journey through her life and her story, we will uncover the details behind this shocking crime and how one woman's will to survive overcame the darkest of circumstances. Tina's story with Ronnie began like many others, with young love. They first met in their teenage years. "I was 14 and Ronnie was 17, Tina recalled in an interview. "He was charming, funny, and he used to play ball with my brother-in-law. We'd hang out at the skating rink with our friends, but we didn't start dating right away because I was too young." Their lives seemed destined to move in different directions. When Tina turned 15, Ronnie left to join the military, and both would go on to marry other people. For years, they lived separate lives, with Tina building her own family. But as fate would have it, they would meet again later in life, and their paths would cross in a way that neither of them expected. Years passed. Tina had gone through her first marriage and divorce, focusing on raising her children and building a stable life. It was during this time that she crossed paths with Ronnie again, this time at a local gym where Tina was working as a fitness instructor. Seeing Ronnie again brought back old memories, and the two began talking more often. Slowly, they rekindled their connection. It wasn't long before Tina and Ronnie's relationship took a more serious turn. Tina saw Ronnie as someone familiar, someone she had known from her younger years, and she believed in the possibility of building something meaningful together. They soon married and began their new life as a couple. But as Tina would later learn, the man she thought she knew had a much darker side. As time went on, Ronnie's behavior began to change. What once seemed like loving attention slowly turned into controlling behavior. Ronnie became possessive, jealous, and increasingly angry over small things. Friends and family noticed, but as is common in many abusive relationships, Tina tried to downplay the warning signs. She loved Ronnie and believed that things would improve, that the man she had fallen in love with was still there beneath the surface. However, as their marriage progressed, the emotional and psychological abuse worsened. Ronnie's possessiveness escalated, and it wasn't long before Tina found herself trapped in a toxic relationship. The warning signs were there, but Tina, like many victims of domestic violence, struggled with the decision to leave. She hoped things would change, but deep down, she knew that something had to give. As their relationship continued, Ronnie's controlling behavior turned into full-blown emotional and verbal abuse. He would lash out over the smallest things, often accusing Tina of things she hadn't done. His jealousy knew no bounds. He monitored her movements, demanded to know where she was at all times, and grew suspicious if she spoke to anyone else. The man who once seemed charming and protective was now becoming her worst nightmare. Tina's life was slowly being consumed by fear. She began to realize that Ronnie's behavior wasn't just part of a rough patch in their marriage. It was something much more dangerous. She started noticing patterns of abuse, recognizing that Ronnie was trying to isolate her from her friends and family. The emotional abuse soon gave way to physical threats, and Tina knew she had to make a choice. The day Tina decided to leave Ronnie was one of the hardest decisions she ever made. Leaving an abusive relationship is never easy, and for Tina, the fear of what Ronnie might do kept her from acting sooner. However, after years of enduring Ronnie's violent outbursts and controlling nature, Tina found the strength to separate from him. She knew that her safety, and possibly her life, was at stake if she stayed any longer. Tina moved out and sought safety, but leaving Ronnie wasn't enough to keep her safe. As is often the case in abusive relationships, The separation only made Ronnie's behavior more volatile. He couldn't accept that Tina had left him, and his obsessive need for control grew even stronger. He began stalking her, calling her incessantly, and even threatening her if she didn't come back. On the morning of the attack, Tina had no idea that her life was about to be changed forever. Ronnie had been relentlessly trying to contact her, and Tina was doing her best to avoid any interaction with him. She was scared but determined to move on. However, Ronnie had other plans. He was furious that Tina had left him, and on that day, he was prepared to make her pay for it. Ronnie showed up unannounced at Tina's home. What should have been a moment of safety within her own walls quickly became a scene of terror. Ronnie stormed inside, gun in hand, enraged and ready to act on his threats. He pointed the gun at Tina, and in a moment that must have felt like an eternity, he pulled the trigger. As the first bullet tore through Tina's body, she instinctively tried to flee, but Ronnie was relentless. He shot her again and again, a total of 7 times, hitting her in the arms, legs, and abdomen. Tina could feel herself slipping away with each shot, but somewhere deep inside, she found the will to survive. Despite the excruciating pain and the overwhelming fear, Tina fought to stay conscious. But in a twist of fate that would ultimately save her life, one of the bullets ricocheted off a nearby surface and struck Ronnie, hitting him in the eye. The injury sent Ronnie into a panic, and in his desperation to save himself, he did something no one expected. He called 911. Ronnie, blinded and bleeding from his wound, dialed for help. Unbeknownst to Ronnie, that 911 call would not only bring paramedics to the scene for his own injury, but would also save Tina's life. When emergency responders arrived, they found both Ronnie and Tina gravely injured. Tina was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked to treat her life-threatening injuries. Miraculously, despite being shot 7 times, Tina survived. The bullet that had taken Ronnie's eye had ultimately saved Tina's life. Without that ricocheted shot, it's possible that Ronnie would have left Tina for dead without seeking any help. His selfish desire to save himself inadvertently brought life-saving aid to the woman he had tried to kill. Tina's recovery was long and grueling. Her body had endured severe trauma, and she underwent multiple surgeries to repair the damage caused by the bullets. But the physical pain was only one part of her journey. The emotional scars ran much deeper. Tina had survived an attack by the man she once loved, and now she had to find the strength to heal from the emotional and psychological wounds he had inflicted over the years. Tina found support through therapy and the love of her family and friends. She was determined to move forward and reclaim her life, no longer as a victim, but as a survivor. Ronnie Goss was arrested at the scene and later charged with attempted murder and aggravated assault. The case was widely covered in the media, with many pointing to the tragic consequences of unchecked domestic violence. Ronnie's actions had nearly cost Tina her life, but justice would be served as he faced the legal consequences of his horrific crime. For Tina, Ronnie's arrest brought some closure, but the journey to fully heal from the trauma of the attack would take time. Tina Davis's story is a powerful reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the strength it takes to survive. She could have easily been another tragic statistic, but instead, she lived to tell her story. Tina now advocates for victims of domestic violence, sharing her experience to help others recognize the signs of abuse and find the courage to leave toxic relationships before it's too late. In interviews, Tina often reflects on the moments that led up to her decision to leave Ronnie. "It wasn't easy," she said, "but leaving was the best thing I could have done. It saved my life." Tina's story highlights the importance of recognizing the signs of abuse, whether they're physical, emotional, or psychological. Many victims stay in abusive relationships out of fear, guilt, or hope that their abuser will change. But as Tina's story shows, abuse only escalates over time, and it's critical to seek help before it's too late. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, there are resources available to help. Organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline are there to provide support and guidance. No one should have to endure abuse, and Tina's story serves as a powerful example of the strength it takes to survive and to thrive. If Tina's story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories of survival, resilience, and overcoming the darkest moments. Together, we can raise awareness about domestic violence and help prevent future tragedies.